Hey everyone, James Lynch here. This is Early Look, the show where I take a look at an upcoming notable fight. And on today's edition, I'm going to be previewing the UFC middleweight title fight, July 2nd, UFC 276, between champion Israel Adesanya and Jared Cannonier. But before I get into my preview and give you my pick, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. I'm putting content on here almost every single day, so you don't want to miss anything by hitting that notification bell. You won't, because it's going to tell you when it's up. So there we go. Okay, let's dig into it here. UFC 276, T-Mobile Arena, bigger cage, July 2nd as part of International Fight Week, and this is going to headline the card, and also because it's a title fight, it will be 5 rounds. Las Vegas, Nevada, already mentioned that. Let's talk first about the last style bender, the current middleweight champion, Israel Adesanya. As you can see there, 22-1 record. He's got 15 knockouts. He doesn't have a single submission win, which is interesting, and 7 decision victories. He's the current middleweight champion. He's 32 years old. He's going to be 33 on July 22nd, so a couple weeks after. He's going to be celebrating his birthday. He's 6'4" with an 80-inch reach, so he's 5 years younger than Jared Cannonier. He's got a 5-inch height advantage and 2.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. Now, Adesanya is a BJJ purple belt. He trains at City Kickboxing. He's the former Glory middleweight champion, former Glory middleweight title challenger. Don't want to get that wrong there. Of course, that's kickboxing. Glory kickboxing is what I'm talking about there. For all the people who call Israel Adesanya a boring fighter, which I don't get, I know not all of his fights have been exciting, and we'll talk about some of those in a second here. He's got performance of the night bonus in his UFC career 5 times. Okay, so check this out. He got performance of the night bonus for the fight against Rob Wilkinson, Brad Tavares, Derek Brunson, Robert Whitaker, and Paulo Costa. He's got performance of the night one time, or sorry, he got, fight of the night 2 times, Anderson Silva and Kelvin Gastelum. So again, people who call this guy boring, go watch the Silva and Gastelum fights especially. He's got most knockdowns in a UFC title fight in 4, and he's got the second longest winning streak in UFC middleweight history at 11. So those are some of the cool stats that Adesanya brings to the table here as he takes on Jared Cannonier. Now, Israel Adesanya had an amateur debut, which he actually lost. I wonder what this guy's up to these days. Just says lost, doesn't have any more information than that, but he lost his debut, but not like it matters. It's amateur. Those don't actually count on your record. He made his MMA debut in March of 2012. You remember there, he won that fight, and then didn't make his UFC debut until February of 2018. Now, granted, that was also because he had a kickboxing career as well, so that's why he didn't get in a little bit later there, but his UFC debut was against Rob Wilkinson, UFC 221, the Romero and Rockhold card, and he won that fight by second round finish in that one. He's got an 11-1 UFC record. He's got 4 stoppage wins. Some of his notable wins include 2 wins over Marvin Vettori, Derek Brunson, Anderson Silva, Kelvin Gastelum, Robert Whitaker 2 times, and Yoel Romero. His only loss is to Jan Blachowicz, and that was a light heavyweight, and that was last March, if you remember. He hasn't really had any layoffs either. That's another reason why people should like Adesanya here. He's very active. You look at this, 2-3 times a year he's fighting, so he's keeping very... on a very good pace here. And you'll also look here, no gaps, no injuries, no layoffs, anything like that. He's been extremely active in his career. Now, Adesanya has had a few close fights. We're going to go through those right now. The first Adesanya-Vettori fight. Now, I see people talking about this fight where it's like, oh yeah, I thought Vettori won the first fight. I don't know, man. I watched that fight live. I thought Adesanya won, and then I went back and looked at the media scorecards for that. That was at UFC on Fox 29 in April of 2018. 15 media members scored the fight for Israel Adesanya. Just 2 scored it for Vettori. So I know it's a split decision there, but again, 90% of people here picking Adesanya, just a few people picking Vettori. I don't really think it was that close, in my opinion. The next fight that was close only because it was just a bad fight. I mean, that if you want to criticize Adesanya for one performance, the Yoel Romero fight is certainly the one to do it. It was not a great fight. Definitely, reminded me a bit of that Rose Namajunas and Carlos Esparza fight we had a few weeks ago. Not good, but that was at UFC 248 in March of 2020. 12 media members scored the fight for Adesanya, 2 scored it a draw, and 7 media members scored it for Yoel Romero. So close fight, but that's just because there wasn't a lot going on in that fight. So I almost just think you should throw that fight out the window because it's just a weird fight. We haven't seen Adesanya have a fight like that since. And same with Romero. He's been pretty exciting fights for the most part. So it was just a case of 2 guys not wanting to, engage too much. Now, the Jan Blachowicz fight, again, I thought Jan decisively beat him, but I went back and looked at the scorecards for that one. That was at UFC 259 last March of 2021. 19 media members scoring the fight for Jan Blachowicz, 7 media members scoring it for Adesanya. I was a little surprised by that. I mean, I just remember Adesanya being on his back most of the fight. Maybe in the stand-up, he picked up a few good shots, but I just remember Jan just being too big, too heavy for him, and just basically smothering Adesanya for most of that fight. So again, I mean, the majority of media still picked Blachowicz to win, but I'm still surprised that 7 media members scored the fight for Adesanya. And then the last fight against Robert Whittaker, man, that like, so I did a reaction video to that fight when it ended up happening. I thought Adesanya did enough to win, but the amount of people who got upset and thought that Robert Whittaker won was astonishing to me. And I went back and looked at the media scorecards for that. UFC 271, February 2022, so earlier this year, 20 media members scoring the fight for Israel Adesanya, 5 scoring it for Robert Whittaker. Now, this one I can understand a little bit more, people being like, okay, Whittaker might have won, because this fight, in my opinion, was a lot closer than the Jan Blachowicz fight. I think, you know, if you wanted to make a case for Whittaker, I could understand it. I still thought Adesanya won. And like I said, 5 media members scoring it for Whittaker. But the majority of people said that Adesanya won that fight. That's 20 media members. So again, you know, people want to say that he lost that last fight. Fine, but it was close. It was a very close fight. So yeah, that's pretty much what Israel Adesanya, the middleweight champion, brings to the table here. And let's talk now about his opponent, Jared Cannonier, who at the time of recording this, it looks like I'm going to get an interview with him, so just keep an eye out for that interview on my UFC interviews playlist. The Killa Gorilla, 15-5 record. He's got 10 knockouts, 2 submission wins, and 3 decisions. He's a number 2 ranked middleweight in the world. He's 38 years old. He's going to be, he turned 38 in March, so he's definitely 38 years old. He's 5'11" with a 77.5 inch reach. So again, Adesanya going to be younger and bigger in this fight, despite the fact that Cannonier's fought as heavy as heavyweight. Now, Cannonier is a BJJ purple belt. He trains at the MMA lab, as you can see there, which is interesting because when you think of the lab, you think of lighter weight guys, Benson Henderson, Sean O'Malley, you know, the cast of characters that are there. You don't think of a lot of bigger guys, but it's worked for him. I mean, he's got a lot of really impressive wins and good coaching. Jared Cannonier is the former AFC heavyweight champion. That's Alaska Fighting, so he's the champion there. He's got fight of the night 1 time against Ion Cutelaba, if you look at it there. And then he's got performance of the night 4 times, kind of like Adesanya here, for the wins over Cyril Asker, David Branch, and Jack Hermanson and Derek Brunson, his last fight. Those were all performance of the nights. You look at it there, Jared Cannonier did have an amateur debut, just like Adesanya did. He fought in March of 2011. That was his first amateur fight. And then he made his MMA debut in just a few months later, or a month later, I should say, in June of 2011, fighting for the Alaska regional scene there. And then he didn't make his UFC debut until January of 2015. So Adesanya making his UFC debut almost 3 years later than when Cannonier did. And Cannonier fought Sean Jordan at heavyweight, which is crazy to think, right? And let's talk about those weight classes. So Jared Cannonier in his career, he's fought 9 times at heavyweight. He's fought 5 times at light heavyweight, and he's only fought 6 times at middleweight. So in the majority parts of his career, he's fought more at heavyweight than any other place, which is interesting. Now, you might be interested to know here that Cannonier's gone 8-5 in his UFC career. But granted, look at these losses here. Sean Jordan, yeah, you would have liked that one back. Glover Teixeira, the current champ at the time of recording this, not a bad loss to have. Jan Blachowicz, former champ, not a bad loss to have. Dominic Reyes, some people felt like he beat John Jones, not a bad loss to have. And then Whittaker, the former middleweight champion. So all of his losses are against guys that, other than Sean Jordan, that have fought for the title or were title holders. So not bad losses to have on the resume there. So yeah, 8-5, 6 stoppage wins. And, you know, I talked about this in the Max Holloway and Alex Volkanovski breakdown. Cannonier started his UFC career 3-4 here, right? You look 3-4. So again, you can't look at records too much because guys can turn things around. Now, some of his notable wins include Anderson Silva, the former middleweight champion, Jack Hermanson, finished Jack in that fight, which is very impressive considering Marvin Vettori went, 5 rounds with Hermanson and couldn't finish him. Kelvin Gastelum, good win there. Derek Brunson, his last fight, had a little bit of a rough start in that one, came back and got the finish in that one. And Derek hadn't been knocked out in forever, so that was a really good win for Cannonier, and that's why he's getting this title shot. Now, some of his notable losses include, I wouldn't call Sean Jordan notable, but still it was his debut, so we'll mention that. Glover Teixeira, lost to him there. Jan Blachowicz, Dominic Reyes, and Robert Whittaker, like I mentioned previously. Cannonier's only had 2 major layoffs in his career, in his UFC career, I should say. Going from Sean Jordan to Cyril Asker, there was a 463-day layoff. And then going from Jack Hermanson to Robert Whittaker, there was a 392-day layoff. So those are the only 2 major layoffs. So, you know, if you want to look at the 2 fighters, Adesanya have been a little bit more active. He's only had 1 injury that we know of, at least a fight that he was scheduled to have, and that was the fight against Jonathan Wilson that never ended up happening, UFC Fight Night 73. He had a broken rib in that fight. So that's why probably he had such a long layoff between Jordan and Asker. Jared Cannonier, the one thing you can say about him, I know there's a few decisions in here, he's never had a close fight, like a fight that, you know, should have gone his way or his opponent's way. So that's one thing that you can expect with Jared. He mostly gets his fights done within the distance. Let's look at the betting odds right now. Where are we here? For some reason, they don't have it listed on UFC 276, but we have it here. So you'll see here, Israel Adesanya, almost a 4-1 favorite here. Now, look, I understand Adesanya being favored. I think the line's a little off, just a tiny bit. And I know, again, Adesanya has never been finished at middleweight, but he's fighting a guy in Jared Cannonier who's got some serious power. In fact, I'd argue he's got more power than maybe Robert Whittaker. It's tough to say, though. I mean, Whittaker's got some good knockouts, too, but Cannonier, I mean, look at what he did to Jack Hermanson. Look at what he's done to so many other opponents. He's got that knockout power like we've seen, like in the Derek Brunson fight as well. So that's something to keep in mind, too. It's a tough fight. Looking back at this, I think it's going to be an interesting test for Adesanya, because if Cannonier can get on the inside, I think he can definitely hurt Israel Adesanya. And I did mention that Adesanya, while he's not been finished in the UFC, people always bring up the fact that he was knocked out by Alex Pereira in kickboxing, the UFC middleweight. So, I mean, he can be knocked out. It's just it has not happened yet in the UFC. So maybe it happens here. We'll see. I wouldn't put it past Jared to, potentially get on the inside and knock out Israel Adesanya. I think if you're going to bet this fight, you definitely play the Cannonier by knockout. I don't see him winning a decision against Adesanya. I think if he does win, it'll be by knockout. So that would be, if you're on the Cannonier side, you could just take him straight up at plus money, or you could take him by knockout. But I'm going Israel Adesanya in this fight. I think he's going to be too quick. He's a little bit bigger in this fight as well. He's younger. He's been more active. And he's just the better technical striker. Like, I don't think what Cannonier is going to throw at him is going to be anything he hasn't seen. Now, there's also the Cannonier wrestling side of things. How can he handle that? I think he'll be fine there. Adesanya, that is. I think he'll be able to stuff the takedown. Ground game wise, I don't think it even goes there. I mean, maybe Cannonier decides to take him down, but I mean, his best asset is his power. So I don't think that's going to happen in this fight. So if it stays standing, I could see Adesanya just picking his shots, being too fast for Cannonier. Cannonier's going to try and get on the inside, but Adesanya's going to keep him at bay with that reach, and he's just going to pick his shots. And the fact that, the other fact as well is that Adesanya has more 5-round experience, right? So, I mean, Cannonier's gone 5 rounds as well. I think he has, right? Cannonier's gone 5 rounds. Was that Whittaker fight was 5 rounds, was it not? Or was it the Gaslam fight? Yeah, sorry, the Gaslam fight was 5 rounds. That's what I was thinking of. And yeah, Whittaker wasn't. My bad on that. My bad. Was that fight? Oh yeah, so Hermanson and Gaslam were 5-round fights. So Cannonier does have some experience with 5-round fights, but Adesanya is just a different animal in that facet. Adesanya has no problem going 5 rounds at all, and we can see him, like in his fight with Gaslam, we can even see him take a shot and still come back and persevere here. So I think it'll be close. I hope this doesn't turn into the Yoel Romero fight where Adesanya is a little gun shy and vice versa. Cannonier won't come forward. I don't think that'll happen. I think it's going to be closer to the Marvin Vettori fight with what we saw there, but with Cannonier trying to get on the inside. I think Cannonier might hit him once, but I think Adesanya will be able to survive that. He might get wobbled here, but I see Adesanya persevering and getting through. And I actually think Adesanya is going to take a decision here. So that's actually something, if you're watching this right now, I think could potentially happen here, because I think Adesanya wins by decision right now is plus money. I could see that happening only because Adesanya has not finished his last couple of opponents, right? The last guy that he finished, I think, was Paulo Costa, if I'm not mistaken. And Costa he was trying to take his head off and he was being reckless. Jared Cannonier is not going to be as reckless as Paulo Costa is, right? And I know he knocked out Whittaker, but we saw in the rematch, Whittaker obviously very durable and wasn't really the true Whittaker in that first fight. So yeah, I'm leaning Adesanya decision here. Again, I don't like to be boring when it comes to this, but I think that's more likely the outcome than, say, Adesanya by finish. I think if Adesanya does finish Cannonier, it's going to be later in the fight. So maybe you look at that round 3, 4, and 5 prop for Adesanya as far as getting a finish in that one. But I'm going to keep it simple here and go Adesanya by decision. If Jared Cannonier wins, I think it'll be by knockout. And do we have actually I might as well look at the odds. See, Adesanya, Cannonier winning inside the distance is plus 495. That's better odds than taking him straight up. So like I said, I don't think Cannonier is going to win a decision. If you are going to bet Cannonier, go with the inside the distance prop, or even better, go by the knockout prop. He's not going to submit. I don't imagine he'll submit Israel Adesanya. Cannonier is not really known for getting submissions. So there we go. That's my pick prediction. I'm going Israel Adesanya by decision. What do you guys think? Who are you leaning towards in this middleweight title fight? Do you think the odds are off a bit, like I've claimed? I think I think Adesanya should be maybe like a 2-1 favorite as opposed to like almost a 4-1 favorite in this fight. That's just my personal opinion. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you hit that like button, and definitely make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you won't miss any updates on this channel. Let me know what you think. Who are you picking? Which side are you on? I'm James Lynch. If there's any other fights you guys want me to check out, let me know in the comments. I can definitely preview and go in depth on those fights as well. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and thanks so much for watching.